So we are starting out with a panel discussion, which is the next event in this half and the last event in this half. We have Mr. Gaurav Mathur sir, who previously took a session and who is the Deputy General Manager of Product Planning at Maruti Suzuki India Limited. We obviously have Dr. Kiran sir, who was just speaking to us and who is the lead of R&D and strategy at Skyroot Aerospace Private Limited. And we have Mr. Pulipaka sir, but I think he's still not joined. So we'll just wait. We'll just get started, and we are contacting him and asking him to join. So when he joins, we can start addressing the questions, the common questions that we have for all of you. For our professors, so any of you, if you feel, please feel free to weigh in. To our panelists too, sir, like if it's an individual question to the other panelist and you have an opinion, please feel free to weigh in. For students, just put in the questions in the chat box, and once the discussion has ended, we will take it up with the panelists. Firstly, thank you so much again to our esteemed panelists for taking the time out, for doing such wonderful, insightful sessions, and now obviously for joining the panel discussion. So to start out, I will start out with Gaurav Mathur sir. So I'll give Dr. Kiran sir a break. You've been speaking for a while. So Gaurav Mathur sir, the first question is, so okay, this is sort of a futuristic question, I guess, but can you discuss how the consumer automotive industry will be affected if Elon Musk's and, well, everyone else's, I guess, the Hyperloop vision is fulfilled in the future? Do you think it will have an impact on the consumer automotive industry? Because, and how it will impact?
Yeah, so as far as the Hyperloop is concerned, I mean, it's a very good concept for going from destination A to destination B in a very quick time. And there are some, what I understand, some trials being done in Middle East, like Dubai, from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, where they are testing such technology and I mean, it may affect the airline industry because now with Hyperloop, you are trying to reduce the time of travel, and with that concept, so definitely in the mobility or in the transportation, it may have implication. So maybe one business may transform into another, and but the basic mobility from going from one place to another will still remain. It's about like using one mode of transport and going to the other mode of transport. So that's the kind of technology change it may bring. And I mean, all these new technologies are being worked upon so that some kind of efficiencies in the system can be brought in, right? And we make the travel enjoyable, experience of travel very good, and people enjoy the travel while and utilize their time effectively. So time is money, and so how you can reduce the time is what they are the key focus of Hyperloop, I think, in my opinion. As far as the normal consumer is concerned, who is using every day for usage their vehicle, I don't think that those might be impacted. It's like going from long distances. This may have a real relevance.
Sure, sir. So one more question. I mean, a lot more questions, but one more sort of around this field. How long do you think the complete electrification of vehicles would take in India? And do you think, is it even feasible for that to happen?
Yeah, so see, as far as the electrification is concerned, there are challenges currently. Key challenges are, number one is in terms of the higher acquisition cost of the vehicles, and number two is the charging infrastructure that currently our country lacks, and third is the range anxiety. So the acquisition price of the vehicle is almost currently almost two and a half, three times of conventional vehicle, right? So our endeavor is how we can reduce that acquisition price, because 80% of the vehicles which are sold in India are below 10 lakh rupees, right? So, and all these electric vehicles are more than 10 lakh or even the currently in India, the cheapest is around 15 lakh, 14, 15 lakh. So the mass volume exists in a lower price range. And for electrification to happen, the vehicle has to fall under, affordable price range where everybody can afford EVs. So that's the number one challenge which all makers are working on. And in terms of ecosystem development, there is a lot of efforts being made for putting up chargers, and how fast it can happen would decide the adoption rate. So there may be some early adopters buying the electric vehicles who are affluent, and they may start giving some kind of a traction. But as I mentioned in my presentation, is like current estimation of EVs, battery electric vehicles, are around 7 to 8% in 2030 of the total market size. And 100% electrification, I don't think in a very near term it will happen, because there are a ecosystem of conventional powertrain. A lot of employment is being generated of conventional powertrain vehicles, and as we go into electrification, the entire ecosystem has to undergo a change, entire value chain has to undergo a change. So all these things will coexist, in my view, in India. And maybe long term, maybe I don't know, maybe 2050 or something, where you can think on all these things. But the point here is like the focus is on how we can make the vehicle electrified. So from a short electrification to a completely battery electrification, so all sort of technologies would coexist, and depending on the segment and consumer paying capacity, so the adoption will go forward, and it will be a transition kind of a journey where the value chain, entire value chain, would undergo a transition, so that we protect our country's employment. And we, because there are a lot of investments which is required to go into this next change. So those investments, the employment being generated, all these skill development, all aspects needs to be done in order to do that transformation.
Sir, because you mentioned skill development, I think this is a question to both of you, and obviously, the key focus of Industry Academy. I mean, so both of you are in, key positions at your respective organizations, and you must be, even if you're not directly involved with recruiting, you are, working with people who are freshly employed with you. So, firstly, number one is, what skill sets do you think fresh graduates who are looking to break into your respective sectors are missing, or what skill sets are very important? And obviously moving on from that is, what is your advice for undergraduate students for joining the sectors? I think I'll start out with Dr. Kiran sir, and then Mr. Mathur sir, you can weigh in on that.
Yeah, it's a very tough question. I think I should say, what do you say? In aerospace sector, whenever we talk about a particular skill set, what is needed, it is totally dependent on the project in which we are working on, or which the company is working on, be it launch vehicles or be it satellite development. In all the fields, we need definitely mechanical engineering, which is the core field. But of course, we also have a lot of, electronics or instrumentation people, and, a lot of IT people, and civil people, as previously also I was telling. But what I have seen to be of a major problem is, unfortunately, some of the students which or who are going to come out during the COVID batch have had some significant loss due to knowledge, which was not imparted due to challenges which were there during COVID. But on the other hand, fortunately, some of the students have utilized this to a better way of skilling themselves by using these softwares what are available. That means, I mean, in terms of CAD CAM or anything like that in that direction, or even coding in their respective fields. So that made some students much better. But a lot of difficulty exists when we are recruiting, when we are looking forward with the same set of resumes from a particular college or a university. it becomes difficult, and only a deeper, interview would, solve. So, for example, what we have at Skyroot Aerospace is that we typically take students or freshers as interns for the first 6 months, evaluate their performance by giving, equal opportunity along with people who are there. And then later on, once they are found suitable, most of the cases after rigorous, interviewing as interns, we take them. We find them good, and then most of them continue their, challenge with us. And this is also quite interesting that it's been working quite good.
Mr. Mathur, sir, before, sorry, sir, just 1 second. Pulipaka, sir, is here. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to the panel discussion. So the question Dr. Kiran sir just was speaking about was, what skill sets are students who are newly employed in these sectors, what skill sets are they missing, and what would be, your advice for students who are trying to join the sectors? So I'll just ask Mr. Mathur sir to weigh in, and then Pulipaka sir, if you wish, you can weigh in. Mr. Mathur sir.
Yeah, I think it's very important for all engineers to understand the key skill sets which the industry is looking at. So I'm not sure about the curriculum, how it is being done, because I graduated almost 17 years ago. But what I feel is like there is some gap between the curriculum which is being taught and the requirement of the industry. So because there is a lot of environment related changes which has happened, technology advancement has happened, and so there is a need to learn, unlearn, and relearn is what we understand. And specifically in the automotive domain, if we talk about, since the car is becoming like computers on wheel, right? So although it is related to a mechanical aspect, but most of the things are becoming electronic, and everything is being controlled by control modules. So apart from mechanical engineering, core know-how, the key electronics and other aspect also are gaining a lot of popularity, and a lot of emphasis is on data. So how we can utilize the data, monetize the data, use big data analysis in the working that we do. So all these skill sets are becoming very relevant. So from an automotive perspective, all I think all of the target audience currently today is the mechanical engineers. So from mechanical engineering perspective, how you can actually use the current know-how in the market, like what industries are looking at in various domain, and try to judge what is the level of education currently being imparted to you, and what are the future trends towards where the industry is going. So then you will be able to get some kind of a judgment that what are the new skills that needs to be to be gained. And there are, now the education system has completely changed. Even if you have done online this engineering, you can still do some short courses online. There are various education tech uh, uh, you know uh, companies which are providing. So whatever skill set that you want to pursue as a career, you should be able to take that as a base, and build on it, because whatever is your passion, that's what really matters, and that's what is going to take you forward in your journey towards success. So that's some of the comments from my side.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Pulipaka, sir, if you, the question is the same, sir, if you would like to weigh in.
So in the solar sector, if you see, predominantly it is not a direct engineering. Like I told you, you are not taught anything related to solar energy application based in your degree, but the fundamentals are very much linked, be it electrical, be it mechanical, be it civil, and all. So particularly pertaining to solar, I don't think there are any skill set that we are looking for. Today, there are a lot of engineers I've seen. You'll be surprised to know they are engineers by degree, but they are handling finance portfolios, investment portfolios in solar companies. So I don't know it is whether a good or bad here in the solar sector that the only skill set we require is being open to learning new things at the same time uh, sort of having a very good aptitude in general. There are other specific skills in the operation maintenance part or installation part which are there, uh, which are mainly pertaining to the know-how of power systems, power electronics. Uh, if you go one step further on the the operation side, we also have monitoring and forecasting, scheduling, where you need some basic level of programming expertise. So these are some of the few skill sets that I am looking at. Because pertaining to solar, if you want me to conclude, there are two parts of it. One is the actual installation part, which is like you need skilled labor to do it. ITI, diploma graduates are employed there. There's a program for that, and the skill comes for green jobs called Suryamitra, where you have a skilling program for 6 months so that you're ready to enter the field and execute projects. That is there. There is another part of it where engineers, chartered engineers, grid operators, all these kind of people, after they have a basic knowledge of the engineering, they go through a brief 2-3 month training process, after which they are introduced into the field. So that part is also there in the front. Here, before I conclude, I also want to highlight one main key aspect that we generally see with the new recruits. Uh, you know, uh, we think once you are an engineer, you have to work in engineering thing. But like I told you, solar is an ocean. You have different aspects of the solar power generation ecosystem which need engineering, which need economical engineering, financial engineering. Uh, all those things are there. So maybe it is better to you pick the part of ecosystem you're targeting and then address it. Uh, or because, like, I'll give you an example of a company. They have opening for a design engineer. At the same time, they are opening for a finance manager. If you see the description in solar, it will almost be similar. Because if you don't know how to manage the assets, what are the assets, how can you manage the assets? So that is how these things are. Asset manager most probably will work more on the commercial aspect than the technical aspect, but still he's there. So I think that is how we have to look solar at. It's not pure play, plain vanilla technical thing today no more.
Thank you, sir. I think, sir, Dr. Kiran, sir, I think you raised a hand.
Yeah, I had a small point which I wanted to add to
Yes.
what Mr. Mathur has said, is about the automation which is going on. As of now in the automotive sector, especially with the cars which are completely automated without any human being, loaded with full of sensors. So this sort of a system is not only applicable for the automotive sector, but also coming slowly into the space sector. So, like a car which is full of sensors, which is able to sense an object which is there on the road, the same is the case with a satellite which is going in space with objects which might be coming ahead of it and bump into it. So the same sort of a system which is also existing, which if proved for the automotive sector, would be very much viable for the space sector. So there are a lot of requirements also in this direction in the worldwide scenario. It's not, don't ever think that you are, within the country and it is within a well. Think wide completely. You have the full world open at your age, and don't try to concentrate yourself on one activity whenever you are. But one important thing during all the things, wherever you're going, do not try to lie. Know if you ever lie in your interviews or everything, it is waste of time both for, the person who is interviewing or the organization which is interviewing and also for yourself. So be truthful, and whenever you write in your resumes also, that should save a lot of things. Time for both of them, because time is money at the end of the day.
Right, sir. So we have a question from the chat box, which we'll take up a bit later. So one thing, I think this is a very common question to all of you, and all of you mentioned at some point or the other during your presentations, the impact of sort of in improving or at least increasing manufacturing in India, the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we have seen budget allocations to solar PV modules. I think space also. I think defense sector has been opened up in the budget. Automotives, the government has been sort of focusing on the PLI scheme for a while now. So I'd like to where do you think India stands in terms of becoming independent or self-reliant currently? And where do you think India will be, say, 5-10 years down the line? And do you think the policy changes are impacting your businesses? So I know it's a huge, big question. I will just ask Mr. Mathur sir to weigh in, and then both of you, sir, you can weigh in individually.
Yeah, so see, everything will depend on how young engineers and young entrepreneurs or young managers will take India forward. So all of you in this session are going to be lay the foundation on how India is going to behave, right? So as far as our country is concerned, I mean, there are a lot of challenges and adversities, but in those adversities we found opportunities, right? So therefore it is very important that we see and find opportunities in whatever challenges that we foresee, and try to come out with some solution which are specific to our country, and how we can use the current resources to come out with some good solution. And as a country, we have good professionals, and going forward, the economic policies and the kind of growth projections which are there are really favorable for very positive and giving a very positive outlook, right? But everything will depend on how the individuals, each one of us is going to contribute in the success story of the nation, right? So it's not that somebody is going to have some magic wand and things will automatically start happening. So it's everybody's contribution that will make that change to happen, right? So every sector, every individual, and every person within the nation has to do his bit, so that as a overall the entire nation prospers and achieve some good heights, which maybe better than what other developed nations have done. So that's my take on this question.
Mr. Pulipaka, sir, what's your take on where India stands on manufacturing, and where do you? Oh, sure, sir. Just 1 second, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mathur, sir. We took up so much of your time, and you were so insightful and engaging throughout it all. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope I'm able to add some value to the discussion and the session. So all the best, and take care and do well, all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Pulipaka, sir, you can go on.
Yeah, so the Atmanirbharta question is a very valid question, and it comes at the right time. Today, in solar ecosystem, solar manufacturing, in the initial years of our journey, we were the second largest exporter in the world of solar modules and cells. This was pre-2010. After 2010, we started importing modules and cells. And today, as we speak, we're importing 80% of our requirement from China. Now the government, because of COVID, it has exposed our vulnerabilities in the supply chain, our over-dependency on countries, and how we are, in the name of energy security and energy independence, we are not at all either energy independent nor energy secure. So government made a strong resolve to introduce an incentive scheme called Production Linked Incentive, PLI, for solar manufacturing. The first phase, 4,500 crores have been allocated. 12 gigawatt of capacity, starting from polysilicon, ingot, wafer, cell, and module is now coming. icing on the cake now is in the budget that was presented by Honorable Finance Minister in the Parliament last month. This PLI has been increased from 4,500 to further more 19,500 crores. That is now making PLI almost 24,000 crores, which is closer to $4 billion. So now this 19,500 crores will help us get 30 to 40,000 megawatt more. So 3 years down the lane, India will have 45 to 50,000 megawatt of solar manufacturing capacity. That is second largest capacity in the world. And all this capacity is not coming with outdated technology. Every module that will come out with this capacity is going to be high efficient, with the temperature coefficient that is higher, efficiency higher. So this is going to sort of change the trajectory of India as a manufacturing superpower. See, today we are blessed with land resource, we are blessed with entrepreneurs, we are blessed with industrial stakeholders, which other countries which are smaller in size, which are not as big as us, cannot leverage. So we can become hub for them, like what China is today. A lot of countries in Europe, America, Australia are looking for India, vouching for India, are rooting for India to become a manufacturing superpower, so that they can also rely on India for a stable, sustainable, and qualitative product. So Atmanirbharta part is when you manufacture things that you want and you consume it inside the country. The extension part of Atmanirbharta is when you're able to support the global economy, thereby adding more value to Indian manufacturers. So I think that is going to happen better late than never. As a federation, in the last 8-9 years, we have been fighting for incentives to manufacturing. We are very happy that the government has come up with that. So this close to almost $3.68 billion today, the scheme is. By 2025, we will be having close to 50 to 55 gigawatt of solar manufacturing capacity in India. This is end-to-end. We'll have polysilicon, we'll have ingot, wafer, cell, and module. High efficiency. We might have thin film, new technologies. All these things are going to be manufactured in India. We are not going to import any of these things. 1-2 years until now, we might, because you can't cut the import dependency overnight. Like, okay, tomorrow night onwards, I'll not import.
It's 4 o'clock.
But it is going to help us, go a long way into becoming more sustainable, more, dictating the market, and more than anything, playing an important role in the global stage. Today, we are known for our thought leadership, our ambitious targets, and our pragmatic approach to climate change. Now, we are one-stop solution. You ask us a policy, we'll give you a good policy. You ask us material, we'll give you material. You ask us to install, we'll install. You ask us to operate and maintain, we'll operate and maintain. So we are going to be the leader, or sort of the one who is showing the path to developing as well as developed countries on how climate change mitigation should be done and how renewable energy proliferation should be taken.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran sir.
I
your-
like that point, making India self-reliant.
Yes,
What
sir.
our Mr. Pulipaka has just told, it is actually making what India is now to making India completely self-reliant. But the only point what was to be added is reliability is very important. Because if we have, for example, any product now down the lane, if you go to any government organization also, they say, yeah, we would prefer an imported item rather than an item from India. This should change. And this change is brought, or can be only brought into the current generation, through the current generation into the system. Yeah, that is only possible with all your minds, where you come up with new startups, you change the entire ecosystem, where you say made in India is much reliable than made in or made abroad. Currently, this point is very important. Whenever you look at any government organization, you give them a chance of, saying wherever you want, you can place the order, then directly place the order abroad. This mindset has to change. And it is not, as Mr. Pulipaka just said, it is not just, just like that possible. It's only possible through all the next generation, where they build up the ecosystem. And a product which is made with the finest possible precision is what is needed by the market. So there was also one more question. Probably I'll answer it later.
Sure, sir. Will you give me 1 second, sir? Yeah, so I think we can take it up now,
Yeah.
sir.
So the question is about the green propulsion. The question was thoughts on future of green energy to fuel the spacecrafts. Like NASA already tried to use green fuel. So could launching a rocket can ever be fully sustainable, whether using solar PV cells or any type of green energy? So there's a lot of thing here actually in your question, Mr. Or Ms. Purva. So the definition of green propulsion, as you have pointed out here, is a bit wider in the current question. But propellants, for example, that are green are being made by a large number of companies even today throughout the world for the launch vehicles. Launch vehicles means rockets. On the other hand, if you think about green propellants, I meant about the green propellants for the launch vehicles. But on the other hand, we also have companies who are making electric propulsion systems or ion propulsion systems in combination with solar panels and RTG based systems, which are radioactive systems which provide energy continuously to the spacecraft in space, or upper stages of satellite of the rockets and or satellites which use green solar panels, relying on the solar energy from the sun. All these systems are already existent since many years. So this sort of system is going on, and it is on a continuous developmental change.
Dr. Kiran sir, just one more question on not exactly on that front, but sort of a diversion. We'll actually, okay, fine. We'll just do this chat question. I think it's sort of related. Dr. Kiran sir, I think this is addressed.
For a nation to be self-reliant, what could be the role of R&D? So the definition of R&D here is wide. I don't know whether you have taken some courses on R&D, but I do give some courses on R&D as a guest faculty to some universities. So it depends on the type of R&D what we are talking about. To be self-reliant and the role of R&D is a very important point for the entire ecosystem to develop if we talk about a particular field. When we are talking about development of a particular field, then the self-reliance is a wider aspect. But when we talk about the overall mechanical engineering or so, then the self-reliance becomes much more pivotal. It depends on which level are we talking about, first point. And without R&D, there is no possibility of getting self-reliance. You always need research and development. So in every branch, for example, let us take the case of solar energy. So the panels what we are there now have a particular efficiency in practice, and when it comes onto papers or in lab scale, they have a different efficiency. But it is not 100%, right? So we always don't stop. We try to evolve better cells, better panels, better energy systems where we can store the energy, in addition to building better ways of having this recombination, so that you have much more energy which is generated, so that we get to the point of getting 100% efficiency from solar cells. Why not? Yeah. So in order to get self-reliance in a particular field, we need to do R&D in such a way that the technological developments go to a greater level. So this makes a lot more self-reliance once you have the entire technology in your grip. I think Mr. Pulipaka can probably add some points to that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Pulipaka, sir, if you have any.
No, I agree with Dr. Kiran that we need to have more hands-on application-oriented R&D in the country, and it is true that R&D. Whatever this question has, someone asked about what is the role of R&D. I would go one step ahead and add another D after R&D, because talking about R&D is okay, but you have to do it on ground. Research, develop, and deploy. That is when you can see things on ground. See, I also spent time in the confinement of air-conditioned rooms talking about reliability and writing papers, but that is not R&D. What you wrote should get converted into something on ground. and then that is how you make a concept into an application oriented thing. And like Dr. Kiran has rightly mentioned, it's essentially that is how the essence of R&D comes out. And you guys, young engineers, you are at the right place, right time, and the right country, I should say. So all you need is just the right mentality and the right push to get things done. So that R in R&D is for all the right things that are to be done, so that you can get things all right.
Fully focused. So there's one question which, well, we got it previously, but so the question is, what are your views on integration of solar and nuclear energy in India's future energy plan? Keeping in mind the high electricity prices and increased CO2 emissions in Germany due to closing of nuclear plants, and Germany's heavy dependence on renewables, which also increases the use of coal and gas as solar energy is intermittent in nature. So do you think we are going to see trends in India as to integration of solar and nuclear energy and or something like that?
There are two questions in this. It's not a single question.
Yes, sir.
Let me answer the first part more clearly, so the second part becomes self-explanatory. Let us look at the electricity profile of Europe. Today, UK, Germany, France, Italy, these countries are at the at a threshold of becoming 60-70% renewable countries. So that means 70-60% of their generation comes from renewables. How are they able to afford that? Predominantly is because of their nuclear base load. So base load is what you define, which gives you a steady power generation output throughout the day. So UK, Germany, France, so they have that steady thing from nuclear always, or they had. And solar comes in the morning and then dies down by evening. Wind comes in the morning, dies down by afternoon, again comes in the evening and dies down in the morning. So this will sort of, cap off your curve and you are able to meet your demand, right? No fuel is clean fuel if you are using unnatural resources. If it is not polluting environment, you are talking that it is, good. But how is that energy generation coming from? What is the source of generation? What should you have to do? What you have to mine? What you have to do to get that generation is what defines the cleanliness, not whether it is going to ultimately impact on it. Although that is one part of the equation. Now, in Germany, in other European countries, today storage has become a significant part. So you have solar or wind. Whenever solar or wind is there, they put energy in storage. Storage is saving it. So when solar or wind is not there, storage can be used. Battery. So that storage forms the base load for you. So when you have storage, you will get rid of coal, you will get rid of nuclear. Now European problem is done. Let us come back to India. In India, our nuclear power capacity is 2% of our installed total capacity. 68% of our installed capacity is coal. Our total installed capacity as of today is 406 gigawatt. 296 is coal. Out of 296, the average plant load factor of all the coal plants in our country today stands at around 58%. That means at any given point of time, one coal plant is working only at a 58% of its maximum capacity. Now you can ask me why. Why? Because we have so much solar, so much wind, so much other source of energy, so we don't need to run our coal plants fully. The idea is when you get storage, it will be a point of time 10-20 years down the line, we'll be sitting in the same call. Some of you must be in different positions there. We'll say our coal plant PLF has fallen down to 20%, 35%. That means we are only using 35% of the coal power out of 296, or that time we projected to go to 410. And the remaining time you are using renewable sources directly or storage from the renewable sources. So now coming back to your actual question of solar plus nuclear, solar in its own is an intermittent source of energy. There is no doubt in that. But solar coupled with storage is going to give you firm dispatchable power, which you can dispatch to any part of the country. So that itself, so the idea behind this question of having solar nuclear, you can replace nuclear and add storage, your question is answered. Having said that, coal harms environment more compared to nuclear. Nuclear is more dangerous than coal in case of any accident. So the trade-off is there. Our Kudankulam plant in Tamil Nadu, fingers crossed, has operated with utmost safety precautions in the last 7-8 years. Take an example of Chernobyl. See what happened during the war last week when there were some high radiation things from another nuclear plant in Ukraine. So it always goes on trade-off between the human safety and electricity needs. So when you are getting solar, when you are having storage prices, when everything is at so historically low levels, why do you want to spend money in mine? You make a plant, do it, and then integrate it. But again, I'll tell you what's going on the ground. We are going to triple our nuclear capacity in 10 years. You will be seeing 4 new nuclear power plants coming up in India by 2030. That is part of a long-term plan. So that there will be one day where what you asked me the question, that might be a reality. 2030, January 6th, we wake up and then we see the load profile. 20% of our electricity base load is coming from nuclear. The remaining 80% is coming from solar, wind, pump storage, green hydrogen storage. That might very well happen. We might get rid of coal in 10-15 years. But having a legacy infrastructure, having coal power plants which are, have been working for a time, which have a, end date, which have to work because they have to become more commercially viable, they have to get their money back, all these things considered, I don't think Indian government looks at nuclear as an option to replace coal. Now the third part of the question, which was not referred in the question, but the intention behind that was the prices have increased because when you stop importing your fuel, in India we don't use heaters and we don't have a centralized district heating, district cooling system. Their energy goes into that in Germany and other countries for providing heat and insulation to your home, and that is imported. So the moment that import stops, you'll have to use your generation sources, which are of course now going to be more costlier. Germany wanted to disband their nuclear plants because they have enough generation source that can meet their demand, their growing demand. Their average electricity per capita requirement is 14 times ours. That is how much they consume. So that demand they were able to envisage and plan to be met only with renewable energy sources by 2060, 2050. Now because of this war, they said, leave everything, chuck this thing with Russia. By 2035, will become 100% renewable. So they are not going to, they are operating some of their coal plants now because they need energy and electricity, but they are not going to use them for a long time. And then the decommissioning of nuclear plants has started in 2006. It's not new. It's been 16 years since the decommissioning in Germany has started. And in the next 5 years, by 2026, it should complete. So there's a 20-year plan. So once that is done, they'll have no nuclear plant in the country. But because of these force majeure conditions, they might have to keep 1 or 2 of them alive so that it will meet their energy resource requirement and then satisfy their energy needs.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll just open up the panel for questions. So if any of the students, you guys have questions, you can unmute and speak. We'll just hold out for like 2-3 minutes. Or you can write it in the chat box, whatever you're comfortable with.
In the meanwhile, Mr. Pulipalkar, what you said is absolutely true because I was working at the nuclear facility of Germany myself, and whatever you told is absolutely true. The way they do the decommissioning, it's really superb. So after 15 years after they decommissioned, I was I visited that place due to people who came for visit. I took them and it was really wow. It was like old Star Wars, what we watch in the movies.
Yes.
They had all those, photographs, all those booklets where originally a lot of Indians came and signed in those registers as visitors. That's fantastic, simply.
Yeah, it is really marvelous the way they have planned and decommissioned, and they're committed very much to the.
And even the amount of electricity what they produce from solar is pretty less. But despite that, the commitment what they have as a social responsibility to to have it on their houses is fantastic.
Exactly.
I get double the amount of electricity what I used to get in Germany, in India.
Yes.
But still, if you look at whether I'm going to use my electric vehicle with green electricity or coal-based electricity, it becomes a question. So are you being socially responsible or not? There is an answer which, the next generation has to give.
That's true.
I don't think we have any questions. I think we've already answered the ones we had. I'll just check once. Yes, I think we've answered. Thank you to both of you. Okay. There is a question. It's from, I'll read it out. It's from Professor Uttam Rana, sir. We are all aware that there is a gap between industry and academia. For future growth, the alignment of the academic curriculum with industry is an essential requirement. However, the cutting-edge technologies are interdisciplinary in nature. Learned experts may please put some light on what educational institutes should primarily consider while modifying the curriculum.
So one point which I would like to add here at this point is I have been speaking to some people recently about this one, the same topic. One point is, when we studied around 20 years ago or so, we had lecturers where there was no proper internet. So people used to listen to what were taught in the class very, very nicely. But if you see the current scenario, when you teach in a class, probably most of the students won't listen to you because they have the habit of, we get that in information in the internet. Yeah. So this sort of an attitude growing down the lane would be much more increasing. So the equipment, what the professors or the teachers should be equipped with is much more beyond, by organizing a lot of industrial tours, industrial visits, industrial experience, what the internet can't give. The actual hands-on ties up with industries where, the students are taken in batches, to visit the industries. That would definitely help. And that would inculcate, not only what the industry is doing, but, networking the mind whenever it needs the neural cells network on an existing neural cell. So the chains are formed when both of them, there should be some relation. So if I talk about, for example, weight of a rocket, question might come, I don't know. Then we talk about weight of an elephant, it is very heavy. So the mind, the way it resembles is, on a particular field, it tries to grow the neural cells. The same way, one needs to understand and incorporate that sort of a teaching strategy into the courses in such a way that the industrial requirements, what industry is doing, are hooked up properly with the requirements of the course, whatever you're doing. So the course structure needs to be heavily modified so that there are some field trips to industries, relevant industries, advanced technologies which are going on. In addition to that, what is very important is to offer what so-called 6 months internship or 1 year internships, so that people can go to the industry and regular reporting back to the institute happens. So this sort of a thing is very useful both for the ecosystem of the startups as well as for the ecosystem of the students, so that they can grow into much further, further thought processes into which what they study in their regular courses might be further beneficial, even towards entrepreneurship.
Mr. Pulipaka, sir, if you'd like to weigh in on the question. Sir.
No, Dr. Kiran has articulated very well. I don't think I have anything to add to what he said. But one last point here, just to add on what he mentioned, is to have more industry people come and interact also with the students, and what kind of thing that you're doing today, it should be more frequent than once in a year or once in a thing, so that, like Dr. Kiran mentioned, that will open up your mind, and you will understand what's actually going on in the ground. In India, unlike other countries which we have seen where people opt to go for higher education, Indian opt to go for higher education, the academia industry connection is not existing at all. when we look at today's solar also, that is one of the key factors. In the just last Tuesday, we had a meeting with the minister, and this was one of the key topic that was being discussed. That the industry academia collaboration. We talk about the word industry academia collaboration, but industry academia don't see eye to eye, don't see at each other, don't talk. There's no one knows what is happening in the ecosystem. That should change. In foreign countries, in US, let's take an example. Industry funds the labs, industry funds the professor, industry funds the students, and the onus is on them to get more from the industry so that their labs can run. So that kind of infrastructure and ecosystem should be there to facilitate, industry academia approach. That's what, in my opinion.
And it is better, for example, in some cases to have faculty as guest faculty from industries or adjunct faculty from industries, so people will get to use the advanced technologies. They also teach their some courses, one course, not heavily burdening the industrial people, but that will benefit both the university as well as for the the person who's giving the lecture, because whenever a person needs to give lecture, he needs to prepare also. But in the process of preparing for the lecture, he brushes up his knowledge or her knowledge in that case, which will be beneficial both to the students as well as to the organization where he or she is working for.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Firstly, thank you so much for doing your individual sessions, doing the panel discussion, and obviously answering all of our questions. I think if anyone else has any other questions, you can put it in. I don't think there are any more questions. So I think we can conclude the panel discussion and sort of the first half of the session too. Dr. Kiran sir, Mr. Pulibaka sir, thank you again so much for coming and for sharing with us your knowledge. And we have noted down the points, so hopefully we'll further sort of try to take your points into consideration when we pursue our future endeavors. And thank you so much.
Wish you all the best. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, so that's sort of the first half.